Hi, the Slidecast aims at helping you become better at summarizing texts. Let's take a look at some issues that are really important in this aspect. First of all, you could try and summarize text and just say, I'm going to summarize. I'm going to take an entire text and I'm going to write it shorter. That may help, but you may find it more useful to try and look for specific answers in a text rather than just look for all information and try to say that in fewer words. In other words, first define a question, know what you're trying to answer, and then try to look for the information that is going to help you answer that question, and that is going to steer how you are going to draft your specific summary. There are a number of concepts that you can use, fixed patterns that are very useful for writing reports or summaries. We're now going to take a look at 3 of these, and we're going to see how it could help summarizing your texts. The first possible approach is by making a summary that deals with a problem. So we get a so-called problem type summary. When we look at the lines in red, we find that there are 4 main parts. Normally, once you try to explain what a problem is, you first start by pointing out what exactly the nature of the problem is. In this case, for instance, the problem could be that the Earth's atmosphere is heating up. In the second phase, you then need to explain why that is a problem. In this case, for instance, when the Earth's atmosphere is heating up, that means that sea levels will rise and extreme weather events will happen and occur, and that could cause trouble. Once we know what the problem is and why it's such a problem, we can look at the main causes. In this case, people say that's due to emissions of greenhouse gases. And finally, we can go on to the final stage and say, okay, what can we now do about this? Well, we can cut CO2 emissions. If we now know that this is a very typical way of framing reports or summaries, we can now start to look for information more honed. For instance, I can make a summary of a paper, specifically trying to find out how it defines the first element. What is the problem? So I'm just going to take information out of research articles focusing on what the problem is, whereas other people in my team, for instance, may focus on other articles that are going to try and figure out what the causes are or what possible solutions there are. Similar to this problem type summary, we've got other types of summaries such as the research type summary. Here we have the same kind of pattern. We start by looking at what is being examined. For instance, we're going to look at our e-commerce website. Then, of course, the why question. Why is that so important? Well, we want to improve online sales. And then we're going to add to a very specific element for research, namely, how are we going to research that? What method is used to do this? In this case, we're just going to track volunteers' actions on the site. If you have a method, that means you're going to measure something. We need to know about the results. That's the last but one step. Well, we're going to look at most clicked items and comments by volunteers. And finally, of course, again, we get down to the conclusions. What are the conclusions we can get out of this? Again, here, your team could split up, and some people could read certain articles trying to find out the what of the question, the why, about methods, results, and conclusions. A third type, then, is the evaluation type summary. Again, here we have our separate, clearly distinguished parts. First of all, what needs to be evaluated? Again, the what question. In this case, we wonder which of the two is greener, driving an electric car or a car that is low emission. Well, to find out which of the two is better, we need to first define what the relevant properties are. In this case, we could look at CO2 emissions, both during production, but also driving and during recycling. Now, once we've established these properties, we can look at the positive aspects. For instance, electric cars, well, there's no emission during driving, but the low emission cars are much better for recycling. Same for negative aspects, and then, of course, it's going to again boil down to a general conclusion. To summarize, what is important to remember? That as soon as you're going to write a summary, first think, what questions do I need answered? And sometimes having fixed structures for your report or for your final paper may prove useful in deciding what the questions are. We've got a problem type report, a research type report, and an evaluation type report. All of these can help you steer your summaries. I hope this has been useful, and there's another summary waiting for the more technical side of summarizing.